Greetings everyone, my name is Dr. Jason Freeman. I'd like to welcome y'all to my channel. In this video, I reviewed a classic British short film, Jemima and Johnny. I'm gonna tell you what I liked about the film, I'm gonna tell you what I didn't really like about the film, then I'm gonna tell you if I think you should see the film or just skip it. Now at any point, feel free to click the notification bell or subscribe to my channel to get more content. So, without further ado, let's begin. So Jemima and Johnny is a 1966 short film set in the Notting Hill neighborhood in London. The film is about two children. Johnny, who is the son of a white nationalist or white supremacist, part of like the National Front, trying to drive Afro-Caribbean people out of the Notting Hill neighborhood. And Jemima is the daughter of Afro-Caribbean immigrants, likely members of the Windrush generation. Now, just to add a little bit of context, so back in August of 2022, I did a video on the origins of the Notting Hill Carnival. Now, the carnival was a response by the civil rights activist Claudia Jones to anti-Black violence within the Notting Hill neighborhood. Now, this violence included like fire bombings, beatings, as well as the murder of Kelso Cochran, an Antiguan carpenter who was murdered by white nationalists within the Notting Hill neighborhood. The film Jemima and Johnny took place less than 10 years after the events that led to the carnival. So basically the people in the film were basically around when this violence was happening, and this was kind of their response as well. Essentially, they're giving their statements as to how they think race relations should be, as opposed to what we saw again in that previous decade. Now, the director of the film, Lionel Ngakane, himself was a Black immigrant to England. He was actually from South Africa. He was a Black South African, and he was essentially in exile from his home country because of his opposition to the racist apartheid system. Now, I first saw this film when I was actually in England back in early January at the BFI South Bank site. So basically, there's this site, this area called the Mediatek, where we kind of were able to go in and watch various films. I had heard of Jemima and Johnny, so I really wanted to see it. And I knew we only had a limited amount of time. And so I sat down and watched this film there. It's about 29 minutes, 28, 29 minutes. If you want to see the film, one thing you could do is if you go to in the comment section below, not the comment section, in the description box below, there's a link to a 7-day free trial of Amazon Prime. And so if you do that, you can actually get access to the film Jemima and Johnny, which you can get through the BFI player on Amazon Prime. So what did I like about this film? Well, the first thing was Jemima and Johnny. The kids in the film were absolutely amazing. And I really credit the director, Lionel Ngakane. I really credit him because I feel like he likely told the kids to kind of be themselves. And that's what it felt like, especially Johnny. Well, actually both kids. Johnny was a lot more active. He was doing a lot more stuff. He was a much more rambunctious type kid. And the Jemima was much more reserved, a little bit more nervous. But when they played together, that's when she kind of became more alive and they became more active. And so it was really interesting to watch these kids. Again, they were cute kids. You know, they were like any kids you would see on the street, just amazing. And so I think their acting really made the film compelling. And the fact they weren't really acting, they were acting, if they're acting, they're acting like children. And it's very convincing. Their performance is very convincing as Jemima and Johnny. I also like the fact that the story of the film was actually pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Now, one of my issues with some of the other things I reviewed on this channel was they can be a little bit preachy. And this film was not preachy at all. It basically showed people of different races, in particular Blacks and white people, and just showed them living life. Now, of course, as again, you had the white nationalist group, you had the immigrants, you had just the various people on the street, and they were just kind of, acting as normal, regular people. And I also like the use of music in the film. So the music really kind of sets the tone for kind of the sweetness of the story. So whenever the kids are kind of playing on the street, they're playing this really cute, really nice music that kind of really gets you, kind of idea of innocence and childhood. And so I think they really use music really well. And when there were like menacing situations, which there were a few of them in the film, they had the kind of like, I don't know what the instrument would be, but it's like this dome, like kind of, it's kind of the idea is supposed to evoke fear. And it really was effective. And so yeah, I really like the use of music. It's really well shot film as well, and it's just a great film, great little story overall. And just one last thing. The fact that it was set in the period right after the violence, I think that's actually was really good too, because one of the things with a lot of films, period pieces, is that the whole idea of authenticity, trying to make it look and feel like the time period, is really difficult. Well, film is essentially from the time period. It's not really documentary, but it's as close as you're going to get. And so there have been films about this period, about the Notting Hill area and violence and stuff like that. But this film was essentially filmed just a few years after the events. So this is how it looked. This is how it looked. This is how it sounded. This is how the people looked. Again, the same people that were there in reality, probably many of those were in the film. It felt like it was filmed in the neighborhood itself. The way the kids moved around, it felt like it was just like a living neighborhood, and they were just kind of filming in there. So yeah, just the fact that it's from that period, you get to see what that period looked like, what it felt like. I think that was a really important thing as well. Another thing I liked about the film. And just one funny thing is, this actually goes back to when I reviewed, I think it was Pressure, the film Pressure. And this was actually one of my critiques of Pressure. But in this case, I just found it funny. Every so often, they'd be on the street, and someone would just like look straight in the camera, just the way I'm looking right now. Now, of course, it's a film, it's a movie, and the idea is the camera's not there, but it's the 1960s. People probably aren't familiar with cameras as much, and this is probably these big hulking things. And it's just funny whenever someone's just kind of walking, and then all of a sudden it's like looking straight into the camera. I love it. It's awesome, because again, it just makes you feel, again, we take cameras for granted now. And at the time, there were these big things. You don't really see them very often. And so whenever a camera would show up, people start looking. And that's exactly what they caught. Just people looking staring straight in the camera. That's supposed to be not there. So I just love that part. So what didn't I like? Well, there was only one thing I didn't really like about the film. And that is because they use, and this is the same issue I had with Pressure as well, because they're using non-actors, when they perform, you can see the performance. So great acting, whether it be Denzel Washington, Daniel Day-Lewis, someone like Daniel Kaluuya, those great actors. It doesn't look like acting. Like, it looks like they're just being themselves. Even though Daniel Kaluuya is not some rodeo guy or horse wrangler from America. He's a British guy. It just seems like that's him. Like, if you saw him on the street, you wouldn't think anything of it. Now, with this film, again, being 1960s, non-actors, when people are like emotional, they're overdoing, they're overacting. Or when they're angry, they're overdoing it. And, it's just something, it's like, I wish it was a little bit better. The kids were great, though. I'm not talking about the kids at all. The kids were amazing. Their acting felt natural, felt like what you would expect from these kids. But like when the mom's crying or the dad's angry or the white nationalists are kind of getting organized, it's very over the top and just very unnatural. And so that's one of my issues with the film. That it'd be nice if they had better acting, but for what the story was, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was I understood they were non-actors and that they're gonna overdo it. It's just it's kind of like it takes you out of it a bit. It's like, oh yeah, this is just it's a film. It's not a documentary. It's a film, and these people they're they probably were told to act happy, and they acted happy, just over the top, unrealistically happy. So yeah, that's my one big critique of the film. So, should you see it or just skip it? Now, based on my review, it's an obvious see it. Absolutely see it. It's a sweet story. It's a period piece. It's from the period when these events were happening. And so, yeah, you should definitely see it. It's nice. And again, it's in a period we're going through right now with race relations so off and problematic, with the rise of white nationalism around the world. and things like that, and just all kind of race, like hate groups and things like that. To see a film where people are trying to live in peace, trying to be good to each other, trying to show sweetness. Also with children, racism is something that's taught. It's not something that's inherent in us. It's something that you're taught this ideology, and so you get to see the kids before they're taught this ideology. Now, you assume that at some point Johnny could get caught up in this world that his dad's in. You hope he doesn't, based on what happened at the end of the film, which I'm not going to spoil. But, maybe he does. In that world, that's the world he's growing up in. So you get to see him before he sees Jemima as a black person. He sees Jemima as just a little nice kid that he wants to play with. And same thing, Jemima is love, loves Johnny. Like, that's kind of, that's her buddy. And there's no hatred there's trepidation just in general because she's a shy kid, but it's not a racial thing. It's more so, she's in her shell, and then he brings her out, and then she's just that's her friend at that point. So I like that. I like to see that on screen. So definitely see it. To me, it makes you, it's a pick you up type film. That deals with race and deals with a very important subject matter, but it does so in a positive, happy way. Now, as always, if you found this review interesting/informative, please like this video, subscribe to my channel. Also, please share this video. And if you have questions about the film Jemima and Johnny or the director Lionel Ngakane, please leave those questions in the comment section below. Thank you all for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your day.